Tonight on Showbiz Prime, rampage at examination centers in parts of the country as more candidates protest strict invigilation of ongoing WASSCE.
This book from cover to cover, English, Arabic, everything.
Journalists who visited one of the schools to report was also assaulted.
One of the female students approached me that I should leave, so I was leaving when I realized that they were coming in their multitude and running after me. Some were throwing stones at me. I don't know that when.
We'll be speaking with the National Association of Graduate Teachers as well as the Deputy Education Minister. Also in this bulletin, protesting School of Hygiene students call off picketing at the Sanitation Ministry after assurances they will be paid their allowances. And poor turnout on final day of a voter registration exercise. And in business,
ISA proposes a sustainable mechanism to check rising expenditure amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right from the disbursement stage to the end user or end beneficiary, to ensure that we are getting value for money at each stage of the process.
My name is Aisha Ibrahim. We're live from our studios in Kokomlime in Accra on your digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air. On the bulletin is also live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. Many thanks for choosing us. Let's begin with this creeping canker that is gradually spreading across the country. Final year high school students are clashing with school authorities and WAEC officials over measures put in place to ensure they do not cheat in examinations. Last week, students of the Akundua Senior High School protested the invigilation of their headmaster because they claim he was too strict. Then the Tamale Senior High School and Deura Jakpa Senior High School, and then today, a Kumfi Amel Senior High School. My colleague Matilda Gavi brings you a compilation of the clashes.
Then you make we solve this book from cover to cover, English, Arabic, everything.
There has been widespread condemnation of the actions by students at the Akundua Senior High School in the Ashanti region. At the moment, a three-member investigative committee is looking into this matter.
Without being judgmental, I don't think the students have that right. We don't solve our problems through violence. So if they have any grievance, we have to channel it through the right processes rather than to vandalize government property unduly.
These students were the first to have started a commotion since the commencement of the 2020 West Africa Senior Secondary Certificate Examination. Despite the condemnation and growing concern about indiscipline among these students, it appears their actions have given courage to other students to follow suit. The latest being students of Ndoro Jakpa Senior High Technical School in Daumango in the West Gonja municipality. They vandalized school properties in protest of the 1.5-meter social distancing sitting arrangement in the examination hall. The students first turned off the light on campus and carried out their deeds under the cover of darkness. Parts of the ceiling of a new 6-unit classroom block that was recently handed over to the school were removed. The louver blades of the school administration were also destroyed. The actions have already been condemned by the chairman of the West Gonja Municipal Security Council, Said Mohasa Jibril, and the Savannah Regional Minister, Salifu Adam Brima, who rushed to the school on Wednesday night.
4 minutes after 8, that the headmaster gave me a call that the students were going on a demonstration, and that if I can get the police here to quell the situation. But fortunately, I came here earlier to wait for the police. And what I saw, the students actually went on a demonstration and they destroyed a lot of school property. That's because the school invigilators are so strict on them. And because of the COVID-19 protocols, you know, usually the spacing has to be at least 1 meter to 1.5 meters. And so they think that is not very good for them. And so the school should relax the invigilation so that they can easily cheat. Even my own regional minister hearing it couldn't sleep. He has to come and join us here to make sure that the situation is brought under control. The boys have all run out of campus as we speak. We met with the girls, and so the girls are currently in their dormitory.
Also in the northern region, an examination officer of the Tamale Senior High School, Alexna, is seeking protection for his family following attempts by some students to attack him. His crime was that he did not allow the student to engage in any examination malpractice during their integrated science paper. About 100 final year students mobilized to attack him on Tuesday night, but he was rescued by school authorities. Irish students of Tamale Senior High School came to attack me. They moved to come and attack me, the exams of staff of school, in my house. Just that, unfortunately, they were stopped on their way to my house by the senior housemaster and other senior members of the school. So they were spoken to, and then they moved back. After which, the headmaster also came and spoke to them. Then the senior housemaster and his team went and reported the matter to the police, and therefore we were provided with police patrol. About 4 vehicles came around and patrolled there around my house within the area there, and this morning.
Do you know why they wanted to attack you?
Oh, the only reason is simple. Their point was that I did not allow them to cheat or to be engaged in more during the exam. Meanwhile, Joy News is learning that some students of Ikumfi Ameya Senior High School are threatening to protest against an external invigilator whose presence at the exam center, according to them, is serving as a form of intimidation. Are we likely to be seeing more of these cases, and how do we neighbor to the bad?
At the Kumfi SHS, the students protested against an external invigilator whose presence at the exam center they said was intimidating. They accused the invigilator of denying them access to the washroom, insisting that they attend nature's call in the open.
It's the 5 senior high schools in my district as they write for their exit examination. In fact, students will usually need motivation from us, especially those of us in authority, to making sure that the sound mind they are required will be stabilized for this examination. But before then, the district had also received a lot of complaints that there has been harassment from the external invigilators. In fact, certain names had been mentioned as to how they are being harassed, and for that matter have affected their state of mind in writing the examination. And as representative of the President and Chief Executive of the district, it's equally imperative for me to move down to the campuses where these harassments are taking place and to ascertain it for myself. Indeed, the staff have shared with me, and I have indicated that nobody under no circumstance has the power or has been given the mandate to subject these students to any form of treatment that will thwart their effort of coming out with successful grades. And so everything is in order now. We make sure these students will have their peace of mind and write very well, as the idea or and let me tell you, Sabit, is form part of the harassment.
This morning, I moved out with my to visit the schools to see for ourselves what are the rumors, whether that was true. We heard a few things from authorities, and we have talked to them. We have assured the students of a serene environment for them to have the examination free, and they will pass and pass well. So even though I've heard it, we have put measures in place. We have spoken to authorities. We have met a few of the regulators. We have asked them to follow the examination rules and not go beyond them, so the children will have the peace of mind to write the examination.
Do you see your visit capable of preventing these students from demonstrating as we are seeing elsewhere?
Definitely. Our visit has paid off. And even if students had in mind to do it, what we have spoken to them will let them put a stop to it.
Students of Bright Senior High School at Kukurintumi in the Eastern Region on Thursday also attacked officials of the West African Examination Council supervising the ongoing WASSCE examination in their school. A journalist with a Daily Graphic in the region who had gone to the school to report has also been brutally assaulted by the students, leaving him with severe injuries. Some WAEC officials present alleged their phones were smashed as they were assaulted.
Yeah, I was just wanting to come and see something. Yes.
We apologize for the loss of audio. Try and get it back for you. But calm was restored only after the police were called in. The agitated students, realizing the police had left, attacked Emmanuel Pacom, a reporter with the Daily Graphic, when he was spotted filming the incident. He has since lodged a complaint with the Kukurintumi police station and has been issued with a hospital form. Well, let's now...
Oh, no, that's true. The headmaster. Yes, he's calling. He started calling Accra in other places. I was yeah, but you are adverts, no?
He wasn't around, so it's the deputy that I spoke to.
Okay. We'll bring it to the front page tomorrow. Because it's still a trending subject, WASSCE examination.
Yeah.
But you're good. No.
Let's get on Zoom, where our Eastern Region correspondent Kofi Sian will be joining us. We'll also be joined by the Vice President of NAGRAD, Richard Anaba, and the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Yaweduchum, on the matter. Let's begin with our correspondent in the Eastern Region, Kofi Sian. Kofi, what are the school authorities saying about this incident? All right, so Kofi Sian will join us later. Let me bring in the Vice President of NAGRAD, Richard Anaba. Richard, many are surprised about this development. They say it's alien to our WASSCE over the years. What's your own assessment of this development? Hello, Mr. Anaba, you are on Joy News Prime. Mr. Anaba, can you kindly unmute for me?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Anaba. Great.
Good evening. I'm Jacob. I'm not Richard. Good evening, my minister and your cherished listeners. This is actually alien to our educational system. We find it very unfortunate things like this happening this time that government is doing its best to help the students, taking into cognizance the numbers involved. But one thing that is gratifying is that the students didn't complain of the teachers not preparing them well for the WASSCE. Their complaints are hinged on 3 areas. One, they said that the past questions that were given to them, they expected the answers from, or the questions from the past questions. And then secondly, they complained about the distance between the candidates in the examination hall. And then lastly, they complain about the strictness of invigilators. In fact, I have perused the integrated science question that they just wrote. All the questions are past questions. I'm surprised my students are saying that the questions that they wrote are not coming from past questions. There's no alien question. But, and the questions were very, very simple. What comes to mind from the onset, what I just said, that the teachers have prepared the students have failed to learn. So the students must know that examination is for those who are ready. You must prepare, you must work hard. You don't go into examination hoping that somebody somewhere will help you out. They talked about distance. WAIC, over the years, have been using 1.4 meters. They just added a 0.1. I don't see that to be a strange occurrence for them to be complaining. And then the invigilators. How do you go to an examination and don't expect to go by the rules? And the invigilators have rules that govern the work they do in the examination hall. And I will be shocked if teachers will not go by rules. In fact, it is the Kukrantumi issue which is worrying. It's a disturbing issue, and I know my minister will speak to that issue.
We've been joined shortly, thankfully, by the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Yao Edichum. I'll come to you briefly, but also the Ghana National Teachers Association General Secretary, Thomas Musa, has also joined us. Thomas, I'm curious to know, this is actually alien. I mean, over the years, we've not witnessed such a situation before. You must be disappointed, I guess. Thomas Musa. All right, so let me go back to Dr. Edichum as we try to get Thomas on the line. I'm told Thomas is back. Thomas, I'm asking what you make of this situation, especially as we've not witnessed this, you know, over the years.
Yeah, please, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you and your listeners. I think that I am very, very sad this evening, particularly looking at the video footage and the turn of events. Government has invested millions of cedis into these particular students. And in fact, if you look at the 2020 budget, clearly it indicates that about 397,500 students will be writing. These are public schools. And if you take that number aside, and if you add the private schools, these are huge investments that the government has made into the lives of these students, taking into consideration the development of human resource capital of this country of ours. Now, given what has happened now, I don't think that we can just say that it just happened out of the blue. In fact, I have been reflecting about since 3 days ago, since we have this particular encounter, since these things started happening. Once upon a time, or for some time now, you realize that some people go on radio, some people also go on, many other places. They say things, do things, and they get away with it. Look, if you take our country as a whole, you realize that the students learn from these people because the students look up to us who are adults as role models. And the things we do and the things we say, they emulate them. For even the Bible says that faith cometh by hearing, faith cometh by hearing. So the things they hear us do, they emulate them. Now to the substantive issues. If you look at the video footage, the students made some claims. And for me, these things should remain as allegations until proven beyond reasonable doubt. The first one is that, yes, I think giving out the past questions to them, it is not a bad thing. In fact, all of us that went to school, in fact, you always need the past questions to prepare you. It enables you to know what is expected of you, as to how you are supposed to answer the questions, among other things. So it is not a bad thing. But as to whether somebody promised somebody or promised them that the questions or they should expect that some of the questions will come from the past questions, that should be an issue that should be investigated.
And that surprises you a lot, right? Let me bring in Dr. Yao Educhum, who is also on the line with us. Doc, the students are on rampage. They're destroying school properties and they're beating up invigilators. I'm sure this has come to your attention. What is your ministry doing about this situation?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Now, I want to say a very good evening to your viewing audience, and also say good evening to those the other panelists. I just want to say this evening that the vast majority of our students are doing the right thing. The few who are engaged in aberrant behavior ought to be condemned, and they have to be condemned. And Ghana Education Service have assured that they are going to make sure that those students are brought to book. And all that I will say to the students is that when you happen to be in your final year writing WASSCE, the last thing you want is to engage in more practices and get yourself caught up in a situation where your future will be held in a balance. So I want to advise them just to be very careful at this time, because they find themselves caught up in the web of indiscipline. They're going to be dealt with. But I want you to know that some of these more practices has been going on. Well, I could tell you that it has been happening in some places, and they've been cracking the whip for the most part. And you should also know that they've done a very good job determining where more practices have taken place and counseling, examination results, and all those things. They do it very well. But I also want WAEC to up their game. There are best practices that you can use to stamp out any attempt at more practice. When students are sitting in a room and there are about 10 versions of the same test with the same level of difficulty, and they know that they cannot, even if they are sitting there to somebody, they cannot look at their question paper, and that question 20 may be my question 15. They will go there with no expectation of teaching whatsoever. So they need to up their game and make sure we can stamp out this expectation of cheating once and for all. There shouldn't be any expectation.
Let me get your mood on this one. And of course, Thomas Musa from NAT made the point, and he says if you listen to the students carefully, it looks as if they were promised something and they have been disappointed. Were they promised something?
I don't think the teachers that I know who teach high school will promise their students that I'm going to go over past questions and therefore don't study anything outside the past question. I think the deputy of NAGRAT also says something. I think he's a science teacher. And he said he flipped through the questions that came, and they all came from past questions anyway. And you see, the good news is this. When you saw those students shouting and screaming, it wasn't students across the country, students of a few schools that were doing what they were doing. And I think they shouldn't take the shine from the vast majority of students who have done the right thing. I met a parent yesterday whose daughter called her and said the exams were so easy. The integrated science was so easy. So the bottom line is this. The vast majority of our students have done the right thing. We need to congratulate them, and we need to encourage them to go ahead and do the right thing and complete the exams and move on to our universities. And those who do not follow the rules and want to go on rampage, Ghana Education Service will deal with them. But I want you to know that the vast majority of our students have done well. Teachers are prepared and well. I also commend headmasters who are saying you are not in my school. You can cheat here. I'll follow the rules. I'm
looking forward to a drastic decision that would lead to letting some of these things away from WAEC or WASSCE, because we don't have to encourage this kind of things. But let me bring in Jacob from NAGRAT. Jacob, how do we resolve some of these issues? It's really, really not pleasant.
Not at all, my sister. I think Musa made a very good point. that we parents, politicians, we have to watch the way we interact with the larger majority, so that these students are looking at us or looking up to us and doing some of these things. Because these videos that we saw, I mean, you find it very unpalatable. You cannot even imagine a student at SHS making those remarks. So I will plead that we parents, teachers, politicians, we should watch the way we interact in our society to guide the youth.
I'm grateful for your time. Jacob Anaba is Vice President of NAGRAD. Thomas Musa is also General Secretary of NAT, and Dr. Yahweh Duchum is the Deputy Education Minister in charge of second cycle schools. And of course, the Ghana Education Service in the last few hours has issued a statement, and it says management of the Ghana Education Service is appalled by scenes of videos making rounds showing students who are not only demonstrating across, also with gross indiscipline and making unfortunate comments. Any distraction of the school properties will be surcharged against the culprits established to be involved, and management of the GES further wishes to assure all law-abiding students to go about their normal studies and activities and know that the authorities will support them to go through the examination successfully. And this was signed by Professor Kwesi Opoku-Amankwa, who is Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Still to come in this bulletin, protesting School of Hygiene students call off picketing at the Sanitation Ministry after assurances they will be paid their allowances. There is small plus business after this break.
Hello, my name is Darryl Kwao here with the latest business news on Showbiz Prime. The Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, is proposing the development of a sustainable system to track government funds that are earmarked for expenditure purposes in the midst of COVID-19. At a media engagement on the 2020 media budget, Director of ISE, Professor Peter Korte, said that such a system will enhance transparency in the economy. More in this report.
The Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISHA, while commending government for some interventions towards improving the livelihoods of Ghanaians, also called for support for households based on scientific data. It says this will ensure that targeted groups benefit from the various programs. The Institute also highlighted the need to track how the funds are being used in the various sectors.
Right from the disbursement stage to the end user or end beneficiary, to ensure that we are getting value for money at each stage of the process. And I believe that will eliminate some of the waste and some of the leakages. We don't want people to hide behind COVID and dissipate the public purse. We want people to be accountable. And Ghanaians would like to know, want to know how our monies are being spent and whether they are being spent judiciously. So that's one. Yes, certainly communication is very critical. Let me give you a typical example. Initially, we were told 54 million was spent during the lockdown to provide hot meals. That communication was definitely not well done. Later on, we were told it was 12 million. If somebody has sat down to break this down carefully, Ghanaians would have been very happy with but if you lump it and say, 54 million, then they start questioning.
Professor Peter Korte raised concerns about funding for the 100 billion economic revitalization program.
The point is that we are getting maybe 70% of the funding from the private sector. And already the private sector is struggling. So not until you revive the private sector, it will be difficult to get a 70 billion from the private sector. That is the point I'm raising. You need to revive the sector to a stage before you can be able to, tap into. If they are losing businesses, they are losing revenue. From the business tracker survey, we've seen that yes, they are shedding jobs, they are paying lower wages, their revenue, their sales have gone down. How do you go to the same private sector to mobilize from which aspect of the private sector? Because they are all struggling.
ISA expressed confidence in the mid-year budget, which it says inspires hope.
Well, meanwhile, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, has criticized government social intervention programs amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, stating they were poorly executed and lack fiscal prudence. With Ghana's debt service taking 72% of government revenue, the IFS warns the country's fiscal position will be the worst since 1993 if austere measures like immediately seeking debt release from debtors and slashing down employees' salaries are not taken. Charles Aite has more.
To the IFS, the review of the 2020 budget estimate shows that Ghana's fiscal position has dramatically worsened. So far, the total revenue and grant for 2020 is projected to be 53.7 billion cedis. However, debt service expenditure is also projected at 38.5 billion cedis, while employee compensation is projected at 27.1 billion cedis. Dr. Said Boache is a senior research fellow with the IFS.
Monies in excess of employee compensation and debt service expenditure needed to meet other budgetary expenditure items had to be borrowed, because compensation and debt service expenditure have consumed virtually everything. So every money the government needed in excess of this amount needed to be borrowed.
Based on the figures, some economists say the government will have to borrow to the tune of 11.8 billion cedis for the 22.1% of total revenue and grants before it can fully service its debts and pay for employee compensation. The IFS has termed this as unprecedented in the Fourth Republic and perhaps in the country's history. Dr. Said Boache recommends some solutions.
This is unprecedented in the Fourth Republic and perhaps in the country's fiscal history. Refrain from engaging in fiscal populism despite the looming 2020 elections. The government should immediately seek debt release, including debt forgiveness from its major creditors, so as to minimize the enormous size of the country's debt service expenditure.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19 in Ghana, economic policy making has been dominated by strategies to address the many impacts of the pandemic. In addition to policies introduced since March, government recently announced the Ghana Cares program, which involves a 100 billion cedi development initiative to mitigate the economic challenges brought about by the pandemic.
And we've got some more business updates in the next hour. Up next, sports with Gary R. Smith is standing by right after this break.
Daryl down with the business, Gary here with the sport. Thank you for your time. We begin in Ghana, and the Ghana Football Association has secured a piece of land to construct an artificial pitch in Bolgatanga. Asari Bediako has more in the following report.
The land, which was donated by Ababu Afelebek, headmaster of Bolgatanga Senior High School, has been duly registered in the name of the Ghana Football Association. The GFA, with the help of the Upper East Regional Football Association, the chiefs, elders and the community, on Wednesday, August 5, unveiled the signpost for the project at a brief ceremony. This follows the decision of the Executive Council to use part of the project funds from the FIFA Forward 1-0 program for the construction of two astroturfs, one at Prampram and the other at Bolgatanga. According to President of the Ghana Football Association, Keto Kreku, the construction of the AstroTurf will come as a relief to the people of Bolgatanga, who have been without quality playing field for years.
We would want to keep the faith that he has in us by ensuring that whatever we have promised to do with the land is delivered and delivered very soon. We have said already that the FIFA-sized football pitch will be constructed this year. We would also provide floodlights so that our brothers and sisters can have 24-hour user-friendly facility. We believe this is just the beginning, and once he continues to bless us, we'll also continue to be here regularly to ensure that we have a very good relationship.
The FIFA Forward 10 Fund was one of the key issues that President Kit Okreko discussed with FIFA President Gianni Infantino during his visit to the home of football, Switzerland, in December 2019. Since the visit, the GFA has been working with the FIFA development officers who visited Ghana in March 2020. Other projects earmarked under FIFA Forward 10 will be announced in due course.
I see how with their black boots and the goal there. So, more Europa League action happening tonight. We gave you previews earlier on Pulse. Let's see what the scorelines are like at the moment. Bayer Leverkusen have beaten Rangers by a goal to nil. Sevilla have beaten Roma by 2 goals to nil. It's halftime and goalless between Basel and Frankfurt. Also close to halftime between Wolves and Olympiacos, the English side currently leading by a goal to nil.
Time now for Showbiz. Becky's here with the very latest from the showbiz world. Hi, Becky.
Hello to you, Aisha. How are you doing?
It's all about pom 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 pom
is in the news. We can't stop talking about pom 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 pom.
Of course, after he made us proud.
Yes. So, I mean, he's giving back to society now. He's launched his foundation, which seeks to empower the youth.
Okay.
And Shatta has been speaking to Foresight TV, and we have that. Shine already. You were doing it. Shine already. Aisha, you have to become a musician. I'll produce you.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Having you as my producer, that would never be a dull moment for me.
It has to happen. But let's talk about movie soundtracks. This is coming from Akwaba. He is saying that the movie makers or the movie producers must try as much as possible to employ the services of writers, songwriters, so that they can create soundtracks for movies here in Ghana, rather than, you know, using all the other soundtracks. So Akwaba's been speaking to my colleague Ibrahim Bembako. I'm in love, Aisha. But let's talk about Odisha. Is a new song from Donzi Chaka.
Okay.
Yes, and he's been explaining to us exactly the motivation behind this particular song. Rapper Donzi Chaka there. Aisha, this is where I leave you tonight.
Good to, have you. It's always fun having you. Thank you so much for bringing us Showbiz. Up next is World News. Welcome back to Showbiz Prime. Now to the rest of our stories. And the final day of voters registration exercise appeared to be rather slow in some centers during news visited in Accra. At Nima, some centers had recorded as low as 2 applicants. The electoral officers tell my colleague Nancy Emefajodosi that the highest figure recorded since the beginning of the final phase has been 30.
So we are currently at the Kizito school here at Nima, and behind me are 3 different registration centers. When we got here, basically there's actually no applicants is here to register. So the place is virtually empty with only electoral officers seated in their seats patiently waiting. I earlier engaged some of the electoral officers who told me that today has been generally slow and this week entirely has been very, very slow. They tell me that today only 2 people have registered at each center. So in total, 5 people, they tell me 221, and so 5 people in total have registered at the Kizito Center. But I want to engage the electoral officer for center number 3 to find out from her basically how things have been going. She'll be able to tell us and give us a different perspective from what we already know. So please come closer to me. Thank you. Okay. So I see that there is actually nobody here. What is going on?
Majority of the people have registered. We've been to 5 phases, so this is actually the last phase. So majority of the people who have already registered, they've crossed over to go and register in other centers.
We've been here. This is the hot spot of Nima when it comes to elections. This past 6 days, how many people have your center at least registered?
We have 107.
107. That's not encouraging.
It's not at all, but it's still accountable for, because the other areas have recorded the higher numbers, which means that it will still tally anyway. Yes.
And today, how many?
Today 3.
Today 3. Are you expecting more?
No. We are not at all.
What was the highest you've recorded in a day and the lowest here?
The highest, we started with 30 then 31, then 10, 10, and then 3.
Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah says it will be crucial in ensuring peaceful elections in December. He points out decision taken at the meeting was strictly being implemented. And Nanaya Ojima joined council members on a visit to some centers and has filed this report.
A case of a national security operative pulling a gun at a registration center perhaps is the most serious security breach in the region. Controversy over the sighting of some centers and allegations of busing of non-residents into Asawase in particular created tension. Though the RECSEC has condemned and intervened to resolve some of the challenges, others remain under police investigation. Mr. Osei-Mensah gives some details.
The reaction of the person who says he's from national security wasn't right. When he found that he should have reported to the security detail at the registration center, and they will have taken the action. So it was just unfortunate, but it means that all of us should be careful. Under any circumstance, let's not take the law into our own hands. Let's use the law, and when we use the law very well, I don't think we have such challenges.
Nonetheless, RECSEC rates the conduct of the exercise largely successful. Mr. Osei-Mensah says a review of security arrangements is critical to deal with anticipated issues during the campaign period.
So we'll go and review after the review of the various directives and the security situation at the various registration centers. During the local government elections, local government level elections, we came out with some security directives. We did the same thing when the National Democratic Congress, they were having their primaries. And we did similar thing when the New Patriotic Party was also having its primaries. And we've done the same thing this time. And all of them, the directives that we gave were adhered to, and the directives did work. So we repeat them, and where we need to make some changes, we make those changes when we get to the discussion stage at the Regional Security Council level. And then we come out with whatever improvement we need. But so far, so good.
Nana Ojima reporting.
The NDC in the Central Region is demanding the immediate arrest and prosecution of persons who are alleged to have attacked some constituents at the registration center in Ajumako, Enyan, Esiam on Wednesday. 5 people are said to have been hospitalized following the attacks on perceived supporters of the NDC. Addressing the media at Ajumako, Besianse, where the attacks allegedly took place, Central Regional Communications Officer of the party, Kwesi Dawood, accused the Transport Minister, Kwekofori Isiama, ADB Managing Director, John Kofi Mensah, and Director of Operations at the Presidency, Lord Comey, and the NPP parliamentary candidate, Rashid Etuafo, of being behind the attacks. Richard Kwejo Nyako joins us on phone for more. Richard, what more can you tell us about this incident?
Well, Aisha, what I can tell you currently is that the police have made no arrest. I have been at the regional police headquarters since morning. There's been meetings upon meetings today. The Ajumako District Police Commander was at the regional police headquarters. What actually happened was that we had reports that the NPP candidate for the Ajumako constituency is alleged to have sent some tax to one of the registration centers at the Ajumako, and then they pulled down the canopy and then vandalized some property. So these are all allegations made by the NDC. We're also told that the NDC parliamentary candidate for the area also passed some people to the same electoral registration center, and so that sparked the violence over there. The police have been speaking on the matter. They say that they are still investigating the matter, and then they are inviting the general public, whoever has anything on this matter, they should just come to the police, and then they will take the matter further. And so this is what we have. That in the afternoon, after the NDC held the press conference, we were shown to an ambulance where one of the victims was lying in the ambulance. They said that they were sending that particular person to Accra for further treatment. And so this is what we have now. So Kwesi Dawood, the Regional Communication Officer of the NDC, has been addressing the media on this.
Now, we've been told that some names have been mentioned who belong to the NPP. How has the NPP been responding to all these allegations?
was in the afternoon, the NPP parliamentary candidate Rashid Chiafo discounted all of these allegations and claims. In fact, he said that nothing like that really happened, and he has not released any tax whatsoever to vandalize the property of the Electoral Commission and injure some people. In fact, they said that they should go to the Electoral Commission, they should ask them whether these incidents really took place. So they mentioned the name of Lord Comey, they mentioned the Transport Minister, and then they mentioned the candidates there. They also mentioned the Regional Secretary of the NPP are the people that are behind these attacks. And so that is why they are calling on government to call on all of these people to order.
Ajumako is our correspondent in the Central Region. Now, students of the School of Hygiene at Kolebu have been assured of payment of their allowances in the coming days. This comes after they picketed at the Ministry of Sanitation, protesting government's failure to pay allowances due them the last 3 years. Nancy Emefa-Jedosi reports the students were informed the Ministry of Finance has approved financial clearance for them to be paid. There's more in the following report.
Drama at the Sanitation Ministry. Students had besieged the premises, sitting on stools and others laying on their mattresses, while a few started prancing around. They were determined to protest until government pay up their allowances. Soon, all of them were in their white attire with red bands, started chanting. President of the Kolebu chapter of the School of Hygiene, Freeheart Owusu Ampoma, complained that they had been neglected by government 3 years without the allowances.
So where is the money? That is the question that we always ask ourselves. And the ministry is telling us that it's due to some administrative bottleneck. Even if it was a Coca-Cola bottle, we could have opened it long time. A Sprite bottle, we could have opened it a long time. They are just trying to use some technical words to deceive us.
Lydia Mensah talks about how negatively the non-payment of these allowances have affected them.
This is the case when we don't have money or we don't pay our fees, we can't write our exams. You call your parents to tell them at this age, or you call your parents to tell them, yeah, I've been sacked from school because of fees. It hurts. It really hurts, and it is some way. Yeah, yes.
You're in a lot of pain.
Yes.
Don't cry.
Therese Ofori came all the way from Ho in the Volta region. She's determined to pass nights at the Sanitation Ministry until the allowances are paid.
Where is our money? Because every day they are talking about administrative bottlenecks, and I just don't get it. Bottle buying. No, is it Coca-Cola bottle? Even if they were using their tank to open it since 2017, I think by now it would have been opened. So what are they trying to tell us? What are they trying to do? And when you come, it's as if they don't know you. They see you and they just pass.
But for Rahel Opoku-Danso, it is about what she says is a disrespect to sanitation and environmental health officers.
How the government takes curative medicine so importantly, more than the preventive medicine, yes, because we always say prevention is better than cure, prevention is better than cure, and you are ignoring preventive medicine. We are equally of importance as the nurses and the doctors, so they shouldn't exempt us when they are telling us they are giving allowances to health trainees, and then they will exempt School of Hygiene. Like School of Hygiene, Ministry of what? Sanitation and Water Resources. When we talk of sanitation, that is us. We are the sanitary inspectors.
An hour after my interaction with them, policemen arrived requesting the students to be calm as they had not notified the police about their protest.
Please, if you know you don't have the sense, don't create any sin. I'm not asking you to go away.
About 2 or 3 minutes ago, there was massive jubilation here, and we're all wondering what exactly was going on. So I went close and spoke to the president of the coalition, who announced that some good news had come out of the meeting they just had with the chief executive officer of the Sanitation Ministry.
Actually, the first one has been partially resolved. We are following up to Minister of Finance to ascertain the actuality before we can confirm that that one too is resolved. But the other two, principals allowing students who are going to write exams, the ministry has indicated that they are going to direct them to allow any student who is going to sit for the examination. And the last proposition, which has to do with the extension of WASSCE to cover for the time that we've lost. They indicated that we should write to them and indicate even the weeks that we want to be extended so that we can prepare adequately for it.
But he says they will not move until there is proof of financial clearance. But the students refuse to disperse until they receive news from the Ministry of Finance.
The students eventually left the premises of the Sanitation Ministry after they were convinced the financial clearance has been approved. And to other stories, Deputy Health Minister Dr. Bernard Okoboy has told Parliament no COVID-19 related death has been recorded in senior high school since the reopening for final exams. He says all SHS students who tested positive for the virus have recovered and are writing the exams. He has been delivering a statement to Parliament on behalf of the Health Minister to update MPs on the fight against COVID-19.
Mr. Speaker, by the grace of God, most of the COVID-19 cases reported in our senior high schools have recovered and are back to school and, in fact, taking part in the West African Senior Secondary Certificate Examination, WASSCE exams. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to thank the health workers who took care of these cases, who, though asymptomatic or mildly ill, required close monitoring and supportive care to expedite recovery and ensure reintegration back to school. Mr. Speaker, by the grace of God and the interventions of government through its ministries and agencies, mainly Ministries of Education and Health, no COVID-19 related death had been recorded in our senior high schools. We trust that by the grace of the Almighty and arrangements put in place by the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Health would help steer all students in the schools to a successful completion of their examinations.
A 4-member committee set up to investigate the death of a final year KNUST SHS student has today submitted a report to the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council. Leonard Richard Sam died after a short illness in school when teachers allegedly left him in the care of his colleagues for fear of contracting COVID-19. Establishment of the committee was based on Local Government Act 936, Section 188, which gives the regional minister supervisory role over education in that region. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah says the report will be forwarded to the Education Minister, Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh, who will take a decision to make it public. Nanaya Ojima has more.
High Court Judge Justice Obendiewu led the committee in investigating the matter. Security and Intelligence Act and the Local Government Act back the setting up of the committee. In about a month, the committee was able to put together a report indicating what contributed to the demise of the student and gives recommendations on how to prevent.
Minority in Parliament is demanding the whereabouts of 20 million Ghana cedis meant for the fixing of streetlights between 2018 and 2019 that they say the Ministry of Energy has not been able to account for. Energy Minister Peter Amewu disclosed to Parliament that the levy that power consumers pay for streetlights has yielded 273 million Ghana cedis over the period, adding that ECG, NEDCO and other power distributors transferred 83 million Ghana cedis of the amount to the ministry for the purpose of fixing and maintaining streetlights, out of which 64 million cedis was used.
Mr. Speaker, in 2018, an amount of 134,266,105.81 cedis was collected by ECG, VRA and NEDCO. An amount of 38,388,702.50 was transferred to the Ministry of Energy, out of which 21,863,937 cedis was utilized by the Ministry. Mr. Speaker, similarly, In 2019, an amount of 139,610,716.35 cedis was collected by ECG, VRA, NEDCO, and an amount of 44,847,25.92 cedis was transferred to the Ministry of Energy, out of which 42,598,659.56 was utilized by the ministry. Mr. Speaker, in summary, a total of 273,876,832.16 was collected by ECG, VRA, and NEDCO for the intended purposes as indicated in the Energy Sector Levies Amendment Act 2017, Act 946 for 2018 and 2019. Whilst a total amount of 83,235,728.49 was transferred to the Ministry of Energy, a total amount of 46,462,596.56 was utilized by the Ministry of Energy.
Ranking member on the Roads and Transport Committee of Parliament, Kwame Abuja, says the difference of 20 million cedis needs to be accounted for. He's also calling for decentralization of street light management to improve road safety.
Everybody pays street light levy, including communities that do not have street lights and then traffic lights. We do not have traffic lights in Adaklu. We do have some street lights, but every community pays that amount of money. So it is a public interest question asked. But look at the answer the minister gave. That in total, about 273 million Ghana cedi was collected from that. An amount of 83 million and over was transferred to the ministry. And then they could only use 64 million. There's a variance of close to 20 million Ghana cedi, which the ministry received but could not account for. I was thinking the minister would be candid with the people of this country, that when people pay their street lights, it will be used for the purpose. We also know that we have street light deficit in this country. What am I talking about? There are communities that require street light. In fact, not even the remote areas. The street light on the motorway doesn't work. But we still pay street light for that. So when the people of this country give you an amount of money, 270 million and above, and the ministry itself, apart from the ECG, NEDCO, VRA, taking part of that money, when the ministry receives in excess of 83 million and cannot account for close to 20 million, it's a big issue. What was his answer in the House? He hardly just made a comment and left. And I think that you, the media, must follow up. The people of this country want to know, why is it that most communities still don't have street light, yet when they pay their street light levy, the ministry receives the money and cannot account for 20 million.
Parliament has approved the Finance Minister's request for a suspension of the Fiscal Responsibility Act after the minority withdraw its opposition. The Act calls for censoring and removal of the Finance Minister should the country's budget deficit go beyond 5% of GDP, except under extraordinary circumstances. The minority has served notice it will trigger processes for the minister to face sanctions, but did not raise any objection when the matter came before the House. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisa tells Joy News the minister deserves a pardon because of COVID-19. He, however, cited a breach last year, according to new figures from the IMF.
Mr. Speaker, to recognize that this Parliament, probably in the passage of that particular legislation, exercise a futuristic mind, because for the law in Section 3 to provide for the anticipation of a public health emergency or other matters related to force majeure was to contemplate that there are events in the world that none of us, including Parliament as an institution, has control over. That is why we can rely on it. But our difficulty is that whilst the minister is reporting a deficit of 4.1%, the IMF in its latest report is reporting 7.1%, adding the energy sector and the banking sector arrears that have been paid. So our difficulty is not with COVID. but with the numbers that the IMF itself is sharing, must we accept the Minister for Finance numbers or what the IMF have published of a 7.1% deficit? We are not naive to accept that COVID has undermined the fundamentals of the economy, the so-called prosperity that was achieved, but certainly the economy could not be resumed.
And Chairman of the Parliament's Finance Committee, Dr. Makasibeyabwa, told the House the extra spending has become necessary to shore up the economy.
Mr. Speaker, during the presentation of the 2020 mid-year budget review on 24th July 2020, the Minister for Finance informed Parliament that he has suspended the fiscal rules in accordance with Section 3(1) of the Fiscal Responsibility Act in paragraph 440 on page 89 of the mid-year review document in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, consequently, and as required by Section 3(3) of the Act, the necessary documentation has been put before the House for approval for the suspension of the fiscal rules. Mr. Speaker, the committee observed that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected virtually all countries of the world and of the Ghanaian economy.
We apologize for the breaking sound. We'll try and get you that sound back, but we'll take a break on Joy News 5. When we return, there is more.
Hi, welcome back to the news. We've got some more business news for you. In times of COVID-19, it has become increasingly difficult for government to prioritize with very limited resources, especially when every sector needs help. It is based on this that 28 teams of Ghanaian, regional and international economists were tasked to research to identify promising solutions for Ghana. A renowned 7-member panel of top experts called the Ghana Priorities Eminent Panel will vet these solutions in a 3-day conference in Accra. Now, speaking at the launch of the panel on behalf of the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, was Professor Joe Amakotofo. He explains how crucial their work will influence national decisions.
It's not in anyone's aspiration to want to live with COVID-19. Even with a common cold, it is not our desire to live with it knowingly. What we need to do is to fully understand, as best as we can, what are the key parameters and the extent of our preparedness in dealing with this public health crisis. So I think what government is doing is bringing together the experts, asking them what they need to do their work as best as they can, demanding of them to give us all the scientific evidence, and leaving it to government then to decide on the basis of the evidence. This, remember, the medical evidence is just one part of the story. There's a lot more, the human story, everyday story that don't show up in the statistics, but they show up in our everyday life. So government must be ready, put in place a whole lot of instruments to listen, to analyze, explore options, both in the short term and the medium term, to understand the resource needs to deal with this, and therefore what is going to work best in quote, because the situation changes rapidly. And so what you thought you knew, what you thought you had prepared, can soon be made obsolete, redundant. So I think government is doing what we expect government to do: take the responsibility, make the decisions, be ready to defend the decisions, accountable for those decisions, and at the same time also rallying public opinion.
While the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, Professor Kwesi Botwe, a former Finance Minister, and Nobel Laureate in Economics, Professor Finn Kidland, are part of the panel. The National Development Planning Commission, together with the Copenhagen Consensus Center, put together this panel. And now we can hear from coordinator for the Ghana priorities at the Copenhagen Center, Dr. Ralph Nojo, shedding more light on this program.
So what we have been doing over the past 18 months under the Ghana priorities is to select policies that we have in Ghana in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. So these policies were selected by a team of experts, mainly from academia, who have selected these policies, and we got over 400 policies. Yes, our work under the Ghana priorities and is to do a cost-benefit analysis. Absolutely no way that we could do cost-benefit analysis of 400 policies. So we moved to the next stage where we had a team of reference groups. The reference groups are people in media, people in private sector, people in government agencies. We're part of selecting 60 policies from the 400 that we have. Okay, so having selected these 60 policies, next was to engage the ministries to validate these policies for us. So we need to be very sure that the choice of the policies that we are picking are policies that are really relevant to Ghana.
Now, in other news, Energy Minister John Peter Mewu says government has placed a moratorium on the signing of renewable energy agreements after it discovered the previous administration signed what he says were too many unnecessary deals. He says the deals signed were double the right price, and the present government has had to renegotiate the cost of some deals. Mr. Mewu was addressing Parliament.
And the imbalances in the renewable IPP simply means the overcapacities of renewables that we have inherited. Mr. Speaker, the imbalances have to do both with the capacity charges and also with the capacity itself. As I stated earlier on, Mr. Speaker, if you permit me, I will just take you through some of the renewables that were signed just between 2013, 2015, and 2016, totaling up to 2,665 megawatts. These 2,665 megawatts create the imbalances within the system. For example, Mr. Speaker, in October 2016, 20 megawatts was signed. Mr. Speaker, in July 2014, another 1,000 megawatts again was signed. Mr. Speaker, in March 2016, 20 megawatts of renewable was signed. Mr. Speaker, in September 2013, 150 megawatts was signed. Mr. Speaker, this renewable was signed with prices ranging from 19 cents per kilowatt hour to 31 cents per kilowatt hour. This creates the imbalances within the system.
Well, next we put the spotlight on a crop that could potentially become an income generator. I'm referring to noni, which is known to be an immune booster in Southeast Asia. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin has been exploring how rural farmers can benefit from the cultivation of the crop if given support.
So imagine that you have a garden, you have about 2-3 of these trees, and then every harvest you fill 10 bottles at 30 cedis, that's 300. So if every 3 months you get 300, you stagger it and you're getting 300 Ghana a month, how many? That's basic salary for some people. So in addition to your this, if you have a few of these in your garden and every month you are getting 300, that's good income.
The noni tree, known scientifically as Morinda citrifolia, grows in shady forests as well as an open rocky or sandy shores of rivers. It matures in about 18 months and begins to bear between 4 and 8 kilograms of fruits every month.
So the tree is here, is growing, and the amazing thing about this tree, it fruits all year round. Even the dry season is green and it just fruits. There are 2 of them. So we pluck and pluck and pluck the fruits, and when we get a container full, we just cap it.
The oval shaped of 10 to 18 centimeters in size is also known as cheese fruit or even vomit fruit due to its pungent smell when ripening.
So as this one is ripe, you see the different sizes. There's this one coming, this one is coming, and you see it's flowering. So just on the same branch, so this is ready to be harvested. After you have harvested this, by the time you come back 3 months' time, these would have also been ready. So there's constant supply.
And finally tonight, for us, a look at how we are ending the day on the commodity market. That's it for business. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Gary R. Smith picks it up from here with some more sports news for you.
Gary R. Smith here with the sport. Thank you for your time. The question is simple as we begin in today's bulletin. Is it time for Ghana's Kwadwo Asamoah to leave Inter Milan? He used to be the darling boy of Antonio Conte back when they were at Juve. However, it seems that things are not going according to plan for the Ghanaian international, with him getting less and less playing time under the Italian. Former Black Stars midfielder and, of course, international football player, now a football agent, Yusuf Chipsa, is on the line with us. Yusuf, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, so first of all, what are the considerations for a high-level player like Kwadwo Asamoah to decide whether he will stay at Inter or whether he will leave?
I know, Gary, your line is not clear at all, please.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Yusuf?
Yes, yes.
I'm saying, what are the considerations for a high-level player like Kwadwo to decide whether to stay or leave?
Oh, thank you very much, Gary. I think it depends on a whole lot of factors. First of all, it depends on what Kwadwo wants to do after his footballing career. It also depends on what he's been able to do for himself in terms of investing and securing his future as at now. So, also it also depends on what is included in his contract so far as his career is concerned. If we relate this to the product life cycle of any product, we can say that Kwadwo is at a point of declining, considering his age and what he's been able to achieve so far in football. He's had a great, wonderful.
All right, so clearly the line is not doing us any favors. We'll try and reconnect with Yusuf, but essentially what he's saying is that Kwadwo has to look at his current contract situation and also have his plans, especially where his career is concerned, in mind before he can make such a decision. We'll try and raise Yusuf again before the bulletin ends. But moving on, and the medical head of Ash Gold, the Ghana Premier League club, Dr. George Chidi, has vehemently denied reports that 4 players in the side have tested positive for COVID-19. The Miners are making plans for the CAF Confederations Cup after they were selected by the GFA following the truncation of this season due to COVID, of course. Now, in their plans, players are to be tested for coronavirus before they start training. And this is his quote. He says, "It's not true, obviously, that the players have contracted COVID because we have not started testing them. We are yet to start the COVID test. All things being equal, on Saturday we should. It's no big deal, anyone testing positive, but we are yet to do the COVID test, and KCCR is ready to come pick the results, but we are trying to put our logistics together. We need to put in place the protocols," he says. Let's finish our chat with Yusuf Chipsa on Inter Milan's Ghana international, Kwadwo Asamoah. Yusuf, hopefully you can hear me and it's better now?
Yes, it's much better now, guys.
All right, let's get your final answer. As a football agent and somebody who knows Kwadwo very well, what would be your advice to him? Because he's not getting playing time at Inter.
Yes, if I had the opportunity to be a representative of Kwadwo, or if Kwadwo was to be my client, I think we need to consider a few factors. One, has Kwadwo been able to do much investment to secure his future? Two, what does he want to do after his footballing career? What kind of career Kojo needs more money to...
Not a good day, Yusuf. We'll try again some other time. But essentially, he's saying if Kojo were his client, they'd have to still consider several factors because those factors will determine whether he should leave or not. And that's it for sport. Thank you for your time. I'm Gary Al Smith. Let's do this again tomorrow.
And it's time for the interactive segment. Students have been rampaging today. They've been beating up their invigilators because they think they are too strict. We posted this on Facebook. We'll get the comments shortly, but it's trending also on Twitter. Let's check the Twitter trends. Tracy Boache is trending #1, and you know why. That feud between herself and all about the sugar daddy. WASSCE is trending #2, and of course we have other one. So WASSCE will be talking about, we'll go on Facebook shortly and read some of the comments that you've been posted. And let's see some of the comments on Twitter as well. Okay, and Gary says, stop the stigma. This 2020 WASSCE is bringing out the demons in the whole exams food chain. Either that or lockdown frustrations are boiling over. And that's our own Gary Smith posting that one. Yakubu Kadri says, updates #3 on WASSCE 2020. Hashtag social studies, hashtag the talented boy is on fire, hashtag help to trend the video by hashtag. And okay, I don't know what he's talking about. And Dr. Hausa Koko says, these WASSCE students got free education in their time and now they want free grades. Yeah, left for. And of course, the number of comments there. Yao Aban says, government provided a teen with free tuition, free boarding, free electricity, free water, free WASSCE registration, free books, even free math sets, and all expected of him was to learn. But no, he places all hopes in Apo Swifts. Now the president is to be blamed. It's sad. And Godfred Akuto says, the headmaster instigated the beatings in Kukrentumi. Hey, this WASSCE is bringing out the worst. Hope he gets what he deserves. And Jude Duncan says, some Akufo-Addo graduates misbehaving, attacking invigilators and teachers because they are not allowed to cheat in their WASSCE. How did we get here? And those are some of your comments. On the Ghana Social University says, a thread of WASSCE students who are angry at MPP. This has really made my day. At JD. Okay, let's get on to Facebook and see some of the comments there. This has generated a number of comments, 112 comments, 39 shares, and 209 likes. Vida Dogbe says, free SHS, free water, free light, so there should also be free Apple. Nanado, please, why did you do this to them? We know you be Mr. President free. And Lakim Jacob says, these students are all going to pay one by one. The struggle some of us went through before we completed SHS isn't easy. We never had the share of free education. We would have made it better. The truth is that humility pays other than that. Some of us wouldn't be where we are now. I'm still grateful to God. And Juvenile said, next thing we'll hear, Akufo-Addo, the WASSCE has been very peaceful. And Charles Harrison says the president has destroyed our secondary schools with politics. When Kufuor introduced NHIS, we never had anything like Kufuor patients. When Mills brought single spine, we didn't hear Mills employees. When Mahama went building all these projects, and we didn't hear Mahama hospitals. So why Akufo-Addo graduates? The past questions given to them were politically branded. MPP have been campaigning in their schools, doing all sort of things. What do we expect the students to do when instead of GES giving them books, they are told that the book is directly from Akufo-Addo? Nana Frimpong says, why should the student learn past questions alone and presume an external examination is going to be a done deal? Hashtag Mercy, be serious candidates. And Nana Menso Fori says, Ghanaian politicians must be cautious of over-reliance of the youth on the youth in the nation, building and developing multifaceted approach to human resource development. There must be a cap to the entry to the senior high school. And Victor Taino says, look at these entitled and lazy generations. Sadly, they will grow one day, join politics and make decisions for us. I'm sure they will even mortgage Ghana. And it's coming from Victor. And those are your comments on Facebook. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. That will be all for the interactive segment, and that's how we also wrap up the bulletin. Many thanks for watching. PM Express Business Edition is up next. Stay tuned in.